glowing with a contact name I hadn't seen in 4 long years. My heart didn't skip a beat. It froze. I picked up, and before I could even say hello, my father's cold, commanding voice cut through the static. "We need to talk about the will. Come home this weekend." I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I simply said, "Okay," and hung up. For the next 8 hours, I sat completely alone in the pitch dark, staring at the wall. But I wasn't grieving, I was planning. At exactly 9 a.m., I called my solicitor. You see, my dad and my golden child siblings thought they were setting a brilliant trap to completely strip me of my inheritance and legacy. But they made one fatal mistake. By the time I walked through that courtroom door, I already knew everything they were planning. My name is Chloe, and I am 27 years old. 4 years ago, I walked away from my family, leaving behind a life of wealth, status, and constant emotional manipulation. The breaking point came when my father's company suffered a massive financial setback due to my brother's reckless mismanagement, yet the entire family chose to use me as the scapegoat. I cut ties completely, building my own life from scratch, without a single cent of their money. But everything changed at 1 a.m. when that phone call shattered the silence of my apartment. Hearing my father Harrison's voice after 48 months of absolute radio silence didn't make me emotional. It made me hypervigilant. "We need to talk about the will. Come home this weekend," he had demanded, his voice carrying the same dictatorial weight as always before the line went completely dead. I sat in the pitch blackness of my living room for hours, the cold night air pressing against my skin. I knew this wasn't an invitation for reconciliation. A man like Harrison doesn't call his estranged daughter in the middle of the night out of sudden guilt. He calls because he needs something, or because he's backed into a corner. As the sun began to rise over the city skyline, the initial shock faded, replaced by a sharp, calculating focus. They thought my absence made me weak and uninformed, but they were about to realize that silence is a two-way street. At exactly 9 a.m. sharp, I walked into the office of Marcus, my trusted solicitor and a longtime legal advisor who had quietly kept an eye on my family's public corporate filings for me over the years. I didn't want to walk into my father's house blind, and Marcus didn't disappoint. Within an hour of digging through recent probate registries and corporate shifts, he uncovered a reality that made my stomach turn. My father's health was rapidly failing, a fact my siblings had hidden from the public. But that wasn't the worst part. My older brother and sister had spent the last 6 months systematically manipulating our weakened father, convincing him to draft a heavily revised version of his will. Marcus pointed to a series of newly cross-filed corporate restructurings on his computer screen, showing that my siblings had masterminded a brilliant, highly illegal trap. They had structured the new legal documents so that all of the family company's massive, failing debts, amounting to millions of dollars, would be legally transferred directly into my name as a sole corporate successor, while the actual lucrative real estate assets and cash reserves were heavily shielded and left entirely to them. They were planning to use my legal signature to completely bankrupt me while they walked away with the family fortune, fully believing that my desire for parental acceptance would blind me to the details. The drive back to my childhood estate over the weekend felt like entering a movie set designed for a tragedy. The massive iron gates and manicured lawns of the family estate projected an image of unshakable wealth and stability that I now knew was built on a foundation of absolute rot. When I walked through the heavy mahogany doors, the atmosphere inside the formal conference room was suffocating. Sitting at the head of the table was my father, looking noticeably frail, but still trying to project his trademark commanding presence. Beside him stood my older brother, wearing a sharp designer suit and a smug, victorious smile that he couldn't quite hide, flanked by their visibly nervous family lawyer. The moment I sat down, my siblings put on a masterful performance of synthetic sympathy, offering hollow hugs and murmuring about how hard the last few years had been on everyone. They pretended this sudden meeting was about healing old wounds and ensuring everyone was taken care of before it was too late. I simply sat there, keeping my face completely expressionless, letting them play their roles perfectly, knowing that every false smile they gave me was just another nail in their own legal coffin. The family lawyer cleared his throat with theatrical precision, sliding a thick, intimidating manila folder across the polished table toward me. My brother leaned forward, his voice dripping with false gentleness as he began to lay out the trap. He explained that due to recent market fluctuations, the family business required a strategic restructure to protect the legacy for future generations. He claimed that because I had been away for so long, our father wanted to give me a major stake in the core leadership as a way to welcome me back into the fold, presenting a stack of signature pages that needed to be executed immediately. "It's just a standard formality, Chloe," my brother said patronizingly, tapping the pen against the table. "Signing these releases shows you're committed to the family, and it ensures your financial security for life." They sat back confidently, exchanging silent, knowing glances, fully expecting the isolated, grieving daughter to blindly sign her financial life away just to hear her father say he was proud of her. They had no idea that I wasn't reading the lines they were pointing to. I was reading the fine print that legally tied my social security number to their toxic liabilities. I picked up the pen, rotating it slowly between my fingers as I looked from my brother's arrogant smile to my father's cold, expectant eyes. Instead of placing the pen to the paper, I set it down, leaned back in my chair, and pulled out my phone, placing it face up on the center of the mahogany table. I pressed a single button, connecting Marcus directly to the room via a live speakerphone link, and watched the smug grin instantly vanish from my brother's face. "We won't be signing those documents today," I said, my voice echoing with an absolute calmness that stunned the room. Marcus immediately began speaking, laying out an ironclad, cross-filed counterfile that blew their entire deception wide open. We presented exact forensic accounting records proving that my brother had forged our father's signature on multiple high-interest corporate loans to cover his own personal failures, and we exposed the hidden debt transfer clauses buried within their fraudulent will. The room went completely dead silent as I revealed the ultimate twist. Under the original, unalterable family trust created by my late mother years ago, any attempt to fraudulently alter the distribution of corporate liabilities automatically triggered a clause that stripped my siblings of their executive powers, leaving them completely exposed to the very debts they tried to hand to me. The confrontation culminated days later at the official final legal hearing in a private courtroom downtown. My siblings arrived with their legal counsel, still desperately trying to put on a brave face and searching for a hidden loophole, their smiles remaining intact until their own lawyer stepped forward to read the finalized terms I had cross-filed through Marcus. I watched the exact moment the blood drained from their faces, their lawyer turning completely pale as he realized the trap had fully snapped shut on his own clients. I calmly stepped up to the podium and formally signed the specific legal releases, not the ones they had prepared to destroy me, but the verified trust execution documents that permanently severed my name from any and all family corporate entities. By signing those papers, I legally forced my brother and sister to face the multi-million-dollar liabilities and fraudulent loan consequences entirely on their own, without a single cent of my mother's protected trust to shield them. Their desperate plan to ruin my life had completely backfired, leaving them trapped in a legal and financial nightmare of their own making, facing imminent bankruptcy and criminal scrutiny. Looking back now, I realized that my father's 1 a.m. phone call wasn't the end of my life. It was the ultimate beginning. I used my fully secured, untouched inheritance from my mother's protected trust to fund my own independent venture, building a highly successful career completely free from the toxic shadow of my family's greed. Word reached me recently that the family estate had to be liquidated to satisfy the massive debts, and my siblings are now facing the harsh reality of living paycheck to paycheck, suffering the consequences of a game they weren't smart enough to play. I survived their cruelty because I refused to let my emotions override my logic, and because I knew my own worth when they tried to treat me like a liability. Now, I want to ask all of you who have followed my story until the very end, what would you do if an estranged parent called you out of the blue in the middle of the night? Would you have walked into that room, or would you your thoughts and the city you are watching from so I can see how far my story has reached? Thank you for your incredible support, and make sure to click on the final screen where I am leaving 2 other shock